This next video involves factoring, and we're asked to factor 2x cubed minus 2x squared minus 12x. To get started, the first thing we're going to need to do is to factor out the greatest common factor from this expression. So we'll take 2x cubed minus 2x squared minus 12x, and we'll factor out that greatest common factor, which I can see there's a factor of x in each of these terms. And then there's also a factor of 2. So as a very first step, I'm going to factor out 2x. And when I do that, I factored 2x out of 2x cubed, so I'll just be left with x squared. If I factor 2x out of negative 2x squared, I'll be left with negative x, so I'll have x squared minus x. And then this term negative 12x, if I factor 2x out of that, I'll simply be left with negative 6. So I'll have x squared minus x minus 6 inside parentheses, and that 2x is out front. Now that the greatest common factor is factored out, I need to address the trinomial that I still have in parentheses. So it's a trinomial with a leading coefficient of 1. So I know that I should be able to factor this, if it factors, into two binomials. And so I'll have two of these, and x will go here and x will go here. And now I need to figure out what two numbers give me that product of negative 6 that would occur when I FOILed this for those last two terms. And then this middle term of negative x. So what I need are two numbers whose factor pairs, or two numbers that are factor pairs that give me a product of negative 6 and a sum of negative 1. So I need a product of negative 6 and a sum of negative 1. And so I need two numbers for which that holds true. So I'm going to make a quick factor pair table. I'll have factor pairs of negative 6, and I'll look at their sum. Depending on how much factoring you've done, you may be able to do this in your head. I'm showing the formal process just in case these two numbers don't immediately pop out to you. So factor pairs of negative 6. If the product of two numbers is negative, then one of them needs to be positive and one of them needs to be negative. So our choices, we could have 1 and negative 6, negative 1 and positive 6. We could have 2 and negative 3, or negative 2 and positive 3. So looking at these, if I take 1 and negative 6, their sum will be negative 5. So those are not the two numbers that I want. Negative 1 and positive 6, that sum will be positive 5. So those are also not the two numbers that I want. 2 and negative 3, their sum is negative 1. So those are precisely the two numbers that I want. And so to finish factoring this, inside these parentheses, I'll have x plus 2. And then in that second set of parentheses, I'll have x minus 3. To find additional resources on this, the key topics that we want to look at involve the GCF, which is an acronym for Greatest Common Factor, and also factoring in general. So I'll take you to the ORCA text quickly. And again, this can be found at spot.pcc.edu/math/ORCCA/ORCCA.html. In this textbook, factoring is covered in Chapter 7. So coming down to Chapter 7, I see factoring. And then factoring out the common factor, that's where we'll learn about GCFs. Could come in there. So there's videos and explanation, problems to try. The one that summarizes a lot about factoring is factoring strategies. And if you're looking to review factoring in general, that's probably your best bet. You can try these problems here. There are also further problems at the end in the exercises that you can practice with. So coming back to our other screen, let's just make sure we capture this. If you're looking for the greatest common factor, you'll see that in ORCA section 7.1. And factoring in general is just ORCA chapter 7. And 7.6 has the summary of factoring.